We welcome now Kip Eideberg. He is Senior Vice President for Government Relations at the Association of Equipment Manufacturers. Welcome back, Kip. Good to have you here. You have an editorial out, actually, on this subject. Give us your sense about what you would like to see from a Biden administration when it comes to manufacturing.
Well, first of all, thanks for having me back, David. Always great to be with you. And it's a great question. And I think there are three things that the Biden administration needs to do immediately to strengthen and incentivize U.S. manufacturing. Let's go through them. First, they should make a significant investment in America's infrastructure. You and I have talked about this before. We are facing up to a $2 trillion infrastructure funding gap, while the manufacturing sector faces a workforce crisis with more than 500,000 unfilled manufacturing jobs. So a robust and long-term investment in infrastructure means jobs, 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 right? And it is also key to the economic recovery. Second, they should stay clear of policies that hurt the competitiveness of U.S. manufacturing. For example, any effort to increase the corporate tax rate or repeal some of the pro-growth provisions in tax reform would make equipment manufacturers less competitive, meaning less investment and fewer jobs. And finally, we need smart and streamlined approach to regulation that protects American workers and our environment while also promoting innovation, economic growth, and job creation. And if they can do all those three things, I think the future for manufacturing is looking pretty good.
So let's talk about, take them in order, infrastructure first. Certainly, candidate Joe Biden had some pretty aggressive plans in certain areas, such as, for example, clean energy, that certainly would require investment in infrastructure and some of the education things. Do you see things there that would help get done what you think needs to be done?
Absolutely. But whenever you make an investment in our infrastructure, whether it is in clean energy, whether it's in roads and bridges, whether it's upgrading broadband connectivity, particularly in rural America, that's going to help manufacturing. I think the biggest challenge for President-elect Biden or President Biden next year in Congress is to forge a bipartisan path forward on infrastructure. Congress is unlikely to pass a $2 trillion coronavirus relief package anytime soon, which had some really important funding in there for infrastructure projects. But if Democrats and Republicans and the Biden administration could come together maybe to pass a smaller, more targeted package focusing on either helping state and local governments find a way out of the COVID-19 economic crisis by jumpstarting some of these infrastructure projects or focusing on specific things, whether it's clean energy or rural broadband, I think that there's progress that can be made.
So, Kip, you put your finger on it, how you find sort of bipartisan agreement here, because both sides say they want infrastructure. President Trump at one point came close to, or thought he came close to, a deal and then walked away from it. What is coming between us and infrastructure? Because everybody says they want it.
Yeah, well, they always say they want it, particularly when they're running for re-election or running for office. The problem is, and we've talked about this before as well, David, it's funding. It's how do you pay for it? And I think you're going to see Republicans in Congress probably pivot back to talking more about the deficit and reining in spending. You'll see Democrats wanting to get a big legislative victory early next year, focus on infrastructure. Can they come together to figure out how to pay for it? I mean, that's the question we are all asking ourselves. And I think we're going to see frustrated expectations for legislation, both on infrastructure and other major policy priorities on both sides of the aisle for the next 2 years. Compromise will be hard fought. It will be hard won. And they'll have to find incremental ways to move forward on some of these critical priorities, which is why we're talking about, can they get a smaller win on infrastructure, build some momentum, and then focus on a larger package with more funding going forward.
Kip, the second thing you mentioned was avoiding some policies that could hurt manufacturing, and you mentioned taxes quite specifically. Is that largely going to turn on those two runoff elections for the Senate in Georgia as a practical matter? Because candidate Joe Biden wanted to raise taxes a lot. I'm not sure President Biden can if he doesn't have a majority in the Senate.
I think it will, and I think that's why you're seeing so much emphasis now and effort on those two runoff elections. You've read the reports, right? They're talking about $500 billion, the cost for these two elections. So I think a lot of focus will be on those two races. But speaking of taxes, David, that sort of leads us to tariffs. And I think I mentioned avoiding some of these policies that will hurt manufacturing. One issue that is often overlooked is that we do not have a closed economy in this country. And anyone who suggests that everything should be made in America is advocating for a closed economy. And so let me tell you what a closed economy will mean for the American worker. It will mean fewer jobs, not more. And for our industry to grow, we need to have customers outside of the country, right? And in order to have customers outside of the country, we need to be globally competitive. And so policies aimed at forcing companies to make everything in America are nothing but a Chinese jobs program because everyone in the world will buy their goods from them. So we should avoid raising the corporate tax rate. We should avoid tariffs. We should avoid costly trade wars. If we can avoid all of that, then I think there's a chance for manufacturing to rebound pretty quickly.
In a few seconds, are you for the Buy America program that actually Mr. Biden advocated?
Well, again, it's complicated. I think we can all agree that we want as many things made in America as possible. But as I said, it's not a closed economy. Supply chains are incredibly complex, and they're global. And what we need is we need policies that will ensure that manufacturers can do what they do best, which is making things in America, employing Americans. And if we have to import some of the components that goes into those manufacturing processes, it will still be a net win for our country, and it will mean more jobs.
Makes great sense. Thank you so much to Kip Eideberg of the Association of Equipment Manufacturers.